Hello and welcome to another Tuesday Talk with Ruby Reese. My name is Killian. I am co-founder at Ruby Reese and at dognutrition.ie, and I'll also be your podcast host. This week, a super interesting topic, and one that is all about the big imposing dogs of the guardian breeds, and we have an absolute specialist on to speak to us all about that. That is Suzy White of the Dog Centre in Kilkenny, and she's also a member of Snout About, a professional group that we are also part of with dognutrition.ie, where we kind of come together and help each other out with our professional areas of expertise. So, for example, as certified canine nutritionists, we help out other professionals with some of our knowledge in that area, but neither Chris nor I are trainers or certified behaviourists or vets or physiotherapists, and they enrich kind of our cases with loads and loads of their knowledge, and we're able to work together in a really great collaborative knowledge share kind of space. So really looking forward to speaking with Suzy all about guardian breeds, something definitely very close to my heart, having grown up with very, very large guardian breed dogs. And I'm still fascinated by loads of the breeds that kind of fall under this category. So really looking forward to digging into that topic now with Suzy. And without further ado, I now introduce you to listen in to that topic with us. Suzy, welcome back to the podcast. How are you doing?
Hey Killian, how are you doing? Thanks so much for having me back.
I'm very good. Could you do us the pleasure maybe of introducing yourself briefly to anyone that mightn't know you yet?
Absolutely. My name is Suzy White. I am one part of Snout About. I'm a certified dog behaviour consultant with the IAABC. I'm a qualified dog trainer, and I've run the Dog Centre for the last 15 years in Kilkenny, but I am Snout About SouthEast.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that. And you're back to talk to us again about guardian breeds. I know we kind of scratched the surface on these breeds in the past, but I'm fascinated by them, and you are as well. But maybe we might start off and try and figure out what even are our guardian breeds.
Absolutely, yeah. This can be a tricky category to kind of define. And my trick of the trade, really, when it comes to guardian breeds, is to define them by if you see a dog with a huge presence, a huge size, that looks like he or she could comfortably live on a big plain of land or up at the side of a mountain, comfortably minding a flock of sheep or livestock, that's likely going to be our guardian breed. So if you're unsure, look for size, presence, and then look for stature and would they comfortably live independently on the side of a mountain. That's probably a guardian breed.
Amazing. If you take a quick glance and you see, oh, that is that a solitary bear? No, it's not. It's a dog. Then you're probably working with a guardian then.
Probably working with a guardian. That is it. And then the other thing we have to come into it is in Ireland, we don't have a natural predator for our livestock like cows and sheep. In America, we have jackals, we have pumas in certain parts, we have coyotes, and this is where guardian breeds would be completely necessary on a farmland to defend that livestock. So even though guardian breeds are still very much used, we don't really have them for their natural role in Ireland because we don't have those natural predators for flock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And maybe let's look at some examples as well, because now we've mentioned big dogs, but I'm guessing like things like your Great Dane mightn't necessarily fall in under this category, but there are other big dogs that might.
Great Dane would
Really?
fall into the category. They are Dutch guardian breeds, and they were purpose bred for minding property and defending it against threat. Maybe sometimes that would be people threats and for intruders. Not particularly used in the modern age as guardian breeds, where we would see the likes of Pyrenees mountain dogs, Kangals, Bovrowels, Neapolitan Mastiffs, Ovcharkas. We would see these dogs still very much being used for their original bred purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when we're talking about these dogs, I'm guessing as well, are we using them for new, let's say, more modern kind of functions in Ireland, as seen as we're not using them to protect them from livestock? The odd jaguar doesn't really cross the path in Ireland, but maybe are we using some of these breeds as property protection breeds, maybe?
Parts, yes, you would see them as
Mhm.
property protection, but definitely the shift, especially in Ireland, has been made into a modern role of pet dog. And this, especially for our topic today about what kind of behavioural issues or aspects can fall under the guardian breed, kind of typical issues we'll see pop up. This is where those problems can lay a little bit. The hardest job in the world for many of our breeds is to be, or many of our dogs, I should say, is to be a domestic pet in a modern world. For guardian breeds, while growing in popularity for an array of reasons, and we can go into those functions and reasons, and they are growing in popularity, but it is a struggle for them to not have a role or not have a job. And this is where we can see those behaviours arise.
Hmm. And I think we do definitely need to dig down into some of the let's say, not say negatives, because there's no such thing as bad behavior, as we know, but how they mightn't always fit into our expectations of a pet dog. But before we do that, maybe let's look at some of the positive traits, because you love guardian breeds. I absolutely love guardian breeds as well. I grew up with St. Bernards, and my sister has a Bernese Mountain Dog. Frenchie definitely doesn't fall in under the typical guardian breed, but it's they're definitely a type of dog that I really really enjoy kind of sharing some of my life with. So I suppose, would you say a lot of people are really attracted, well, their size is obviously amazing. It really stops you in your tracks when you do see a giant breed, kind of walking around either the city or the countryside, but also maybe, the fact that they are protective, that they do want to protect us, that they're very loyal. Is that something that really attracts a lot of people?
Absolutely, yeah. So especially if you see even our national dog for our actual now previous president, Michael D. Higgins, the Bernese Mountain Dog was almost like his kind of well, his go-to breed for sure, but it was part of what made us warm to him so much. And that has definitely contributed to Bernese Mountain Dogs getting very, very popular. They're eye-catching. They're not a dog that you walk down the street and get ignored, They're definitely
Mhm.
going to be dogs that cause a lot of attention, that gather a lot of questions and people wanting to come over and say hello. Their size, and on top of that, they're just extremely beautiful to look at. They are a really cool dog to hang out with. They're quite happy to, well, be independent in sorts, or in parts. They're a dog that really is up to anything. If you're a hiker, they'll likely go hiking with you. If you're a chilled out person, they can sit and observe and watch the world go by with you. They're also one of the oldest breed group in the world, up there with sighthounds. So they look a lot like their original ancestors, and that makes them a really almost like a Renaissance dog in themselves, kind of thinking everyone can recognize them and they've seen them in books, they've seen them in literature, and that can cause attraction to it as well. Think of Peter Pan's dog, Nanny, the Newfoundland, or Beethoven and all those lovely big giant breeds. They definitely have that attraction in them.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. And I suppose we've bred these dogs over the centuries to express certain traits, right? So I'm presuming a lot of these kind of guardian traits that we've really, really wanted to have bred into these dogs now kind of crop up as an instinct for these dogs in their day-to-day lives, even when they're living in our homes, right? And is this where we start to see kind of some issues, or maybe some misunderstanding between what an owner, what a household expected, and what they get with a guardian breed?
Yes, so that's it. So they are dogs who have been chosen to have very specific set of behaviors. And I do want to definitely say that there is variability in all breed groups. There's no line in the sand behavioral wise for one breed. Like these traits can be really evident in one guardian breed dog that belongs to that group. And we could even see variability in a shepherd or a sheepdog bred dog. They can also have some guarding instincts. And when we talk about these things, I don't want anyone to come away and go, huh, my guardian breed doesn't have that full set of behaviours that Suzy is explaining. But it is nice as something to kind of draw from when it comes to understanding our breed and how best to live with them and what to expect from them. For our guardian breeds, they're dogs that have been chosen to have a very specific lower predatory drive. They're not big herders, or they're not particularly fascinated with movement, but they are protective dogs that have been bred to use very specific ritualized behaviors to deter threats. Whether those threats in some cases are intruders, or if those threats are other dogs or other animals. And the problem can lie with these expectations, because you can kind of imagine, okay, I'm hearing this, I have a livestock guardian breed, so this can drum up the idea of a dog like frantically chasing off a threat, whatever that threat is. But instead, what we can expect to see in these breeds is barking behaviors, kind of yeah, should you come over here, I will use my big bark to defend my flock. Say,
Hmm.
whether even if that's just, a Bernese Mountain Dog who won't let grandma in the house
Yeah.
because, they're not sure of this new person, and their house is their domain, and they're not particularly like highly territorial in the case of they're not just defending all day long, but if they do detect a threat like something out of the norm, they'll observe it. And then if they feel the need, they will use big barking behaviors. And then what we can also see is they are dogs who are big enough and have a big enough presence to be confident and use the presence to engage a threat should they need to, but have also been bred to be pretty independent, which makes cues like sit, stay, recall something that's not as easy for them to learn. Because if you can imagine, we bred these dogs to go away from us independently and make decisions independent from their humans, so unlike again, a collie, to refer back to them, or a German shepherd, they've very much been bred to have that human animal bond, to rely on a set of cues that they've learned and rehearsed, ritually with their person. A guardian breed is like, good, I got this. You go over there, I'll go over here, and we can both make our decisions for the same outcome. And this is where we love them. We love to obviously have them make decisions independently from us. But also to confirm that they need to tell the intruder over there to take a hike if they need to.
Hmm. Absolutely. And it's funny because when you're explaining kind of, their role a little bit, I was thinking they're almost like a security bouncer on the side of a mountain, that they're kind of there to say, I will use whatever force necessary, but I'm going to give you a quick shout first and bark. And then, we'll keep you out of this field or my territory. So it's really, really interesting then when you put that onto a family context, and like you say, someone
Yeah,
visiting the home, that their traditional role would have been that of the doorman or the doorwoman to kind of
very
check
good.
who's allowed in or not into the property. So it makes total sense. And maybe it's a silly question, but do you think that these bigger breeds, guardian breeds, are better suited than to country living, or are there ways that we can kind of accommodate them in our cityscapes as well? What do you think about that?
So yeah, so this is really interesting because sometimes we think size means bigger land. And I don't think this is the case. As someone who has a Newfoundland, she has she has a set of skills that we've worked on, we've rehearsed. So it does make her a dog that can adapt to anywhere. We're living in rented accommodation, so we have moved around a lot, and she's been able to adapt. That's because we've worked on very specific protocols, management, and skills that work for her. They are a dog that can adapt to a lot of things. Their size doesn't mean they necessarily need a lot of space, but if they're left to their own devices, they likely will, take it on themselves to have a look at that, of walking around that fence line ritually, or if they've kind of been left from puppyhood to make up their own kind of skills, or what they feel is appropriate. We can see that stranger danger or defensive barking then develop later on. Regardless of their environment, it's more the skills that we need to work on, and protocols that we need to work on to help them live harmoniously and to not have problem behaviors develop later on. So yeah, so not so much about the environment in terms of space, but management.
Hmm. Yeah, and management and training is I suppose something that I'm kind of thinking about now as well. Do we see these breeds kind of interacting with a bit of reactivity sometimes? Does aggression come a little bit? Because I'm guessing that, because the way they were bred and the functions they were bred for, makes them solitary and these, really, really interesting kind of characteristics. But then when we do decide to bring them into cities and bring them on park walks, where they come into maybe close proximity with lots of other dogs and humans, strange humans, how do we see a lot of issues kind of showing up then because of this as well?
Yeah, well, what I tend to see is because as puppies, they are literal balls of fluff,
Hmm.
as most puppies are, but you can imagine a guardian breed is completely fluffy, completely, already looks almost like an adult size from very young, and then we just see it grow and gain muscle and gain almost just presence.
Hmm.
So as little puppies, they're quite agreeable. They'll almost appear to be aloof, not particularly bothered by anything. They'll kind of like lapse around. We're not going to see the other behaviors that we'd expect in other breeds. Like we expect we expect gun dog breeds to be quite jumpy. We expect herding breeds to be quite mouthy, and those are specific traits that we're going to see very early on in those particular breeds. Whereas in terms of our guardian breeds, we're going to see agreeable little puppies that start to develop stranger danger or won't let your neighbour who you've invited over to tea in the house suddenly develop then at adolescence. And then this is where a behaviour expert or a trainer will get called in, and the owner kind of can sometimes struggle to get their head around their lovely agreeable puppy now suddenly developing this behaviour. What I'll often hear from clients of that own guardian breeds is, but he's always been really friendly. He's always been really
Mm.
happy to meet everyone. But that's usually because we've seen that agreeable puppy who's just observing and really happy just to chill out with you in the cafe, in the park, on the bench, just watching everything. When they develop adolescence, this is where we can kind of see our guardian breed kind of going, okay, I've been observing. I know what to guard now, so I'm good. I can take this over now. And this is where we need to make them not particularly sociable. We can't make dogs be sociable, but we can allow them to develop skills that help them across a range of different social settings. So rather than have people completely, you know, they'll want to come up to your fluffy puppy, but rather than have them be introduced to everyone and anyone, practice just sitting and doing nothing. Let them observe, but pair it with something else. Scatter feeds for sniffing. When we have guests over, we can develop confinement or management strategies like puppies in their safe space behind a stair gate, in the utility room or in a puppy pen off the room so that they're not getting that, narrow hallway greeting with every single visitor that comes in and they're the first thing that's greeted. They're still allowed to develop, they're still allowed watch and observe, but they're not in positions where they're like, is this who I need to be wary of? Is this something that we need to, deter here? And
Hmm.
kind of teaching them that, yeah, this stuff happens and it's also absolutely okay. You will see people, you'll see a lot of people, you will see dogs, you'll also see a load of trucks and other unusual things like e-scooters, and we'll walk past something really unusual and we still understand that it's still okay just to watch and pass by these things. They're not things that we need to immediately be worried by or anticipate a threat from it. Their threat perception is what develops these behaviors long term. So we don't want them just to figure things out by themselves. We just want them to essentially learn that, yeah, these things happen and it's okay.
Hmm. So taking a lot of patience with some socialization, loads of positive experiences, particularly as a puppy, I'm guessing, are going to be super important for any dog, but particularly for these breeds, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Think observation, big distance away, pairing with positive things like treat scatters, and then always doing it at your puppy's own pace and avoiding, of course, those typical overexposure or flooding scenarios.
Hmm. And when we see these dogs living in urban settings in particular, do we see them more than other breeds, kind of sitting in the window and watching the road and kind of barking at everything that goes past? Is that something that we see, or is that more related to other dogs?
We could definitely see it. We could see it if they're in the front garden. We'd often
Mm.
see them at a back gate. If that's where they'll see and hear things the most, that's where you'll find them. They'll be quite happy to watch out the window, and that can be their thing. They'll take that role on where they're like, "Yeah, I'll observe. I'll take this area of the house." Um, we won't see an awful lot of big barking behaviors unless they feel it's necessary. So this is where that management piece can come in.
Mhm.
Even allowing some level of it, like, yeah, okay, have your time out in the garden or have your time on the long line on your walk where we'll stop and just have a little look and observe of things, but we won't leave them to their own devices. A little bit of window time is fine, but we wouldn't want them to spend all day doing that. If they have rehearsed barking behaviors, if you can think about it from the dog's perspective, the postman showed up or the neighbor has showed up to drop something in. They had a big bark at the window, and then that threat has now gone away. And the dog is like, okay, this is ritualized, this is
Mhm.
functional, this is purposeful. I'm going to continue this every chance I get. Then when we actually want the guest to come in the house for a cup of tea, this is where we have the dog still rehearsing those same behaviors. But it's all about those skills and making it ourselves as owners aware of what are we exposing our dogs to and what behaviors are they rehearsing and what are they practicing. Because if those behaviors get reinforced, we will see them getting rehearsed in every single aspect that those dogs feel they need to rehearse those behaviors.
Okay, and maybe it's a loaded question, but do we see certain guardian breeds struggling a little bit more with kind of integrating into our lives than others?
Yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
I suppose it goes into even the immediate environment. Like in Ireland, as I said, we're not going to see a lot of Kangals. We're not
Hmm.
going to see a lot of Spanish Mastiffs. We will see our most popular breeds like the Bernese Mountain Dog and the Newfoundland, or even Great Pyrenees are starting to come very, very popular. And like with every breed, every dog, when there's a market, when there's popularity there, this is where we will see those dogs start to develop the genetics or the wrong kind of breeding. Um, and this is where we will see small gene pools. We won't see the right screening happening for the parents because they're just being bred for a market. They're not being bred the right way. And then, of course, you can imagine if we are dealing with dogs with big size, we are going to have those natural heart problems. We're going to have those natural joint problems and things like osteoarthritis and hip and elbow dysplasia are going to become genetics. And then we have dogs that have a huge threat perception and then are also in pain or in some kind of discomfort. And like with every breed deserves a research and deserves a sit down and all family members understanding what exactly are we taking on and what are we taking into our home and how to do it right and researching the right breeder, but specifically for our guardian breeds because we don't want what's tending to happen. We don't want a lot of uncomfortable, genetically kind of overbred dogs with small gene pools that have behavior issues like neophobia or, anxious dispositions from being bred the wrong way, living in homes with huge threat perception, because this is where we're going to see these behaviors become more and more problematic. And then, of course, we have those typical things like the dysregulation or the unregulated industry of dog training and behavior
Hmm.
support. And this means that people don't even have the access to the behavior support that they need. And this is where we're going to develop problems and see these behaviors develop a lot more.
We interrupt this podcast episode to bring you a message from our sponsors, ourselves, Ruby Reese. When working with large and giant breed dogs, one concern comes up over and over again. How can we support our large dogs' joints with a natural supplement? We recommend a high quality omega oil for all dogs. For example, we offer a brilliant 100% sardine oil at Ruby Reese, and we stock some other great plant-based options as well. For our larger breeds with common joint concerns, we additionally recommend our green lip muscle powder, which has the added benefit of natural chondroitin and glucosamine. Check out ruby-reese.com for more. hmm And I suppose, do you think it's fair to say that when you're getting a big dog that has a very big presence, you're kind of taking on quite a large responsibility as well, to get the appropriate training and get a behaviorist on board where necessary, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like with any breed, or even if you could look at the breed specific legislation, because the awareness isn't, or the education isn't always there, this can drum up just a fear of a certain breed. And as you know from all your amazing podcasts, Gillian, and I know this doesn't always mean that people are then protected because we're banning or restricting further breeds. This can actually lead to breeding going underground. And of course, this is always going to have the negative result or negative impact that we want. And it means less regulation around breeding guidelines. And then we're also going to see people having a fear of a breed. And instead of understanding how to avoid bites or how to have a better communication or understanding of dog body language and behavior, we're going to see bites actually escalate and increase because more fear doesn't protect people. It just puts dogs in vulnerable positions, people without the proper supports in place. And then we see an escalation in dog bite.
hmm Yeah, and there are some, like, quite a few of these breeds that are known to be, or perceived to be, I suppose, by society at large as quite um imposing, maybe threatening types of dogs. Like, I think I've seen on lists of kind of suggestions, at least of guardian breeds of things like Dogo Argentino, Cane Corso, Akita. Like, these are well known breeds to at least, I suppose in a Hollywood sense, give us an idea that this could be a big crazy aggressive dog, and I think some people do acquire these dogs as well because they give off that hard kind of image as well, right?
Well, that's it. And but then in that same list that you've named of those breeds, they are guardian breeds and they look very different to maybe the fluffy Great Pyrenees or great,
hmm
not so fluffy, but still a Great Dane. They might have a different kind of understanding. They might have a different, you could say, reputation,
hmm
but they're the same guardian breeds. They have the same territorial aggression that they need to. They have the same array of ritualized threat perception that we may not always want in a home, but it may be the same group, but it's a great example of these are the same group. They can share the same kind of characteristics and behavior traits, even though you might fear one scary looking one over the more docile looking fluffy Bernese Mountain Dog.
Yeah, absolutely. And because I grew up with big dogs, I'm always attracted to the dogs, even the scary looking ones, because I know a lot of them are big fluffy goofballs anyway.
Yeah.
So that I'm not trying to kind of underline the stereotype or anything, but it's definitely worth kind of pointing it out that I suppose, thanks to lots of different things, media, social media, Hollywood, and other things that I suppose we've been given a fear of specific breeds, whether it's warranted or not. But I suppose, like you mentioned as well, it's really worthwhile that people do some research on the particular breed and then try and meet the individuals as well and find out what a potential puppy or young dog might actually be like in their individual sense, and then set them up for success, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes across, goes for every breed. And as we know, it always goes back down to regulation and understanding and awareness and having some level of um understanding how dogs work and learning theory. No one needs to be a qualified trainer to take on a guardian breed, but we do need to have those strategies or those protocols in place before problem behaviors develop. Like all breeds, but exactly as you said, Killian, having a 50, 60 kilo dog needs to have some level of understanding what's expected of them and in an array of different situations. And I suppose it's worth saying at this point as well that this can sometimes mean people focusing on control and the control
hmm
element. And then with this can sometimes lead into maybe undesirable tools. Of course, like if you can imagine it, if we have a dog that's struggling with staying inside the property line, people are going to rely on radio fence collars. If we have dogs that have had a lunge or a rush towards a person or a dog on a walk, their owners are obviously going to then feel they need to rely on choke collars or prong collars to keep those dogs in check. And as we know, these tools aren't going to be the thing to rely on for our dog to have a good relationship with the world. If anything, we can kind of further damage that human dog bond if
Mhm.
they're learning by association and learning, okay, not only do I have a threat perception of people approaching me and my human on walks, but now I understand that it's in my learning history that this can also come with a tightening around the neck or a pain response, and then we're going to have an even more frustrated, anxious dog with a high threat perception, leading to even bigger problems later on. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, so it's important to have all these things in mind, and it goes back to working with someone accredited and certified. But when it comes to guardian breeds, I think experience is a really important part of that as well. Someone who usually is working with reactivity, Rock Collies and German Shepherds, mightn't have the same array of skills someone who has history of guardian breeds. So this is why collaboration in the industry is so important, and being able to refer as needed, or even just what we do in Snout About, which is rely on each other to work through and run things by colleagues and stuff like that. So it's all moving in the right direction. It's to make sure that it's all happening for the owners of guardian breeds as and when they need it as well. They have the support in place.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I suppose it's one way as well of looking at it. You know, if owners are kind of reaching for tools, they're at a stage of desperation. They feel like, oh, I need some sort of help. What tool can help me? But it's probably better to go to a professional that can help you and kind of take you by the hand a little bit and say, look, this is okay, this is expected, this is adolescence, this is a breed specific trait or a very common trait in the breeding type of dog. So it's a lovely way of looking at it. You know, yes, you might be frustrated and you might be looking for a quick fix, but maybe go for something that might be more of a sustainable help for you and support kind of in the longer term as well. Okay, and now I'm wondering as well about enrichment, because I suppose you've mentioned that they were kind of bred originally to express very specific traits and maybe not the whole predatory sequence. That lots of other dogs kind of focus in on other different areas of it. What kind of enrichment works really well for guardian breeds?
Okay, this is a great question because, as always, and as you know, Killian, it always depends on the individual preferences of that breed and of that dog in front of us. Of course, a lot of guardian breeds aren't particularly food motivated. It's almost like they're kind of conserving energy an awful lot, where they're like, oh, okay, I don't really need to go fishing for something out of a Kong. Whereas another guardian breed or guardian breed type, like my Ripley the Newfoundland, to reference her again, love food, love the tree scatter, love the Kong, love the lick math. Be really happy to do any food puzzle you give her. So it's very much specific to the dog in front of us, but they won't always be motivated by food. They'll be motivated by you, they'll be motivated by the environment. Environmental enrichment is usually something that's allowing the dog to choose what they want to do, whether that's sniffing, or just following a particular scent trail or sitting and observing. We've mentioned it before, but do sit with your guardian breed, let them take in their surrounds. If one thing to do with every breed, but a guardian breed is going to appreciate this, is time on a long line safely, of course, when the environment allows it, and letting them choose the route. That choice and that agency really feeds into those lovely dopamine receptors in a guardian breed's brain. And like any breed, we talk about so much about their own choice and agency, and how we kind of control so many aspects of their life: what they eat, when they eat, how they eat, where they sleep, how they sleep. So allowing any kind of choice and agency into our dogs' lives is always a good thing to do. But for guardian breeds, that really feeds into their independence factor. They're like, oh yeah, I'll do this. I can have a little navigate here, and you're coming with me, and this to me is bliss. So allowing for that when safe to do so is a great thing to do. When we talk about food motivation and guardian breeds, it's really important to, of course, understand that motivation doesn't mean stubborn or stupid. Uh, doesn't always mean they will work for food, but that doesn't mean that we can't develop the skills that they need. They do love predictability and predictable patterns, allowing for the dog to learn this is okay. They know what to expect. Socially observe you with your guest, and then they kind of learn this is okay. They don't need to be sitting and eating a Kong, um, the way sometimes we will suggest for other kind of breeds. And we'll talk a little bit about that with management. So A lot of it is just kind of giving them their choice and agency in a safe way, and this gives them that satisfaction and fulfillment we want with enrichment and talking about enrichment for any breed, but particularly for our guardians.
Yeah, definitely. And I really do love the idea of kind of getting out into nature and leaving them scope out kind of a location a bit more. I think that sounds fascinating because, you know, because of the traits that we've already spoken about, of course, that's what they want to do. They want to check this place out, make sure it's safe, make sure everything's hunky dory, that we're all good here, and maybe explore things as well. I'm sure coming into autumn, loads of them love checking around in the leaves as well and stuff like that, and
But yeah,
seeing what's happening around the place. So that sounds really good. And then I suppose taking away from nature then and into our homes where I suppose we unfortunately spend so much of our time. How do we maybe kind of look at then at maybe enrichment in the home, and how do we look at maybe introducing new people into the home, guests, things like that? You know, how do we kind of manage our big breeds then in that sense?
yeah, okay. So we spoke a little bit about management and confinement,
Mm.
and guest protocols is something that I want to get out to all guardian breed owners because, like I said, that lovely, adorable puppy who appears to love everyone hits adolescence. We start seeing typical high threat perception, adolescent breed traits, and then problems can start to develop. And even standardized counter conditioning or classical conditioning or any of the kind of tried techniques of, like, say, engage, disengage, treat and retreat. There's nothing wrong with using these for guardian breeds, but if we are struggling with a high level of stranger danger or guest defensive behaviors with our guardian breed, sometimes using something like engage, disengage, where we're asking for the dog to look over at the guest, marking and rewarding it with a specific cue or clicker and a treat, we can inadvertently almost teach our guardian breed and reward them for the guarding. So we do have to be careful with what are the ritualized patterns that we're using to help our dog feel most comfortable with the guest. And this is where I will always reference Kim Brophy's off-duty protocol. I tend to call it stand down, take a coffee break, you know, something a little bit more common. But I've also heard another guardian breed specialist on a podcast call it "We Don't Eat Our Friends" protocol, which is also appropriate for guardian breeding guests. But greeting protocols, or Kim Brophy's off-duty protocol, is essentially setting up a predictable pattern and protocol. Practicing containment and management with our guardian breed is going to be really important. Allowing them to practice the rushing to the door the second the doorbell or the knock on the door happens is probably not going to be desirable for our guardian breeds. That's kind of giving our guardian breeds the chances of them deciding that the person shouldn't be there, and this is where we'll see barking or not allowing people into the house. We could see like anything develop from here. We could see maladaptive behaviors like barking and lunging to barking defensive behaviors. And what I would like to talk about is the go to your canteen, chill out, have a coffee break protocol, as I mentioned previously. And this is going to be having our dogs behind a stair gate or contained somewhere where they're not locked away behind a closed door. This is going to cause frustration. But a tall stair gate, and Amazon have specific tall, higher stair gates if you need them. Sometimes it's handy just to go to Aldi and get the typical baby gate that we're going to see in the middle aisle. But for guardian breeds, we want that tall stairgate. We don't want our Neapolitan Mastiff hanging out over the over the lower half of the stairgate. So let's look for the taller ones. And the
Mm.
purpose of this is they still have full visual access and they can sit, observe, they can take in scent-based information about the incoming guest, but they're not just left to rush and rehearse all the undesirable behaviours. So behind the stairgate is where they can still see, move around, and observe as one element of their pattern of predictable behaviours when it comes to a guest protocol. There's also a lot of what I call social signaling with guardian breeds, and this is allowing the guest to come in, sit down, have their coffee. Predictable patterns allow for the dog to learn this is okay. They know what to expect. They get to socially observe you with your guest. In some cases, I have previously even recommended to guardian breed owners to make a point of shaking the guest's hand, or even saying, I'm going to put my hand on your shoulder now, as part of a social signaling in front of their guardian breed. This is in specific cases where they learn, okay, this is not an intruder. This is the same pattern of behaviors that I see with the family members, and this is not something that's going to arise my threat perception. My clients have the ability to relax. Then they know that they have a guardian breed that's okay with guests coming in, and that they have that gate in place and no one is going to get rushed or barked at.
I absolutely love your handshake recommendation, and this is the kind of the snippets of gold dust that you get from working with a behaviorist, I think, because like it's so obvious, and I would have never come to this conclusion ever on my own. But of course, dogs are very visual a lot of the time, and especially a guardian breed that's trained to sit there and observe. And like you say, they're so pattern based. I could totally even see our Frenchie, just watching this and be like, that's what that means. Because even when we're teaching, like simple tricks and everything, she's not great with words, but she's brilliant with a hand signal. So of course, a handshake or
Oh,
whatever it is, a hug or whatever, these things could be so easily trained on that, these, there's no stranger danger to be had here. I really, really love it. That's amazing.
exactly. Well, I mean, they're amazing at reading us, our dogs, no matter what the
Mm,
breed. They're body language experts. It's us that rely on the visuals, well, the vocals and
yeah.
the looking around to take in stuff. They're relying on body language, routine behaviors, sniff and scent-based information. But our guardian breeds are going to sit, observe, and then detect what's wrong with this picture. And it's the what's wrong with this picture is going to like heighten their arousal and heighten their, their threat perception. And then we're going to
Mhm,
see that barking and that rushing. Whereas if they understand, okay, this is the same ritualized behaviors that I see for everything else. This is not an intruder. And we want our guardian breed owners to feel relaxed and feel that they can rely on this same predictable pattern. It's also making their guardian breeds feel safe and secure and emotionally regulated. So I often use the example of me being in the home because, you know, I always get a lovely welcome from all of my clients. They're amazing, but it's very strange having a behavior consultant in your kitchen table with a laptop or with a book writing out all of your dog's data. And naturally, they're going to be a little bit stiff and like, this is very weird, because it's weird having a behavior consultant in the house.
mm.
And these are little things that I can start to build up in the client's mind for what their dog might be perceiving, what their dog might be perceptive to. And if we've had an opportunity where a guardian breed has rushed or barked or used their presence to deter, in their mind, the threat, I'm using a lot of bunny ears here because threat, you know,
Hmm.
are,
Yeah.
are not the same threats that we're seeing for a guardian breed. Um, then they are going to be on edge. So having that guest protocol, take a coffee break, we don't eat our friends protocol, go to your canteen, whatever we want to call it or refer to it to. And I do encourage people who are interested in this topic to look up more on Kim Brophy because she's the guardian breed queen. But the more they feel relaxed in these settings, they can rely on this set of behaviors and they're going to feel as safe as their dog is learning to feel as well.
Amazing. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And we will of course put in some information as well on those protocols into the show notes as well for anyone that's looking for them. But yeah, absolutely. It makes total sense. You're kind of like signposting behaviors as well. You're saying like this is kind of what's happening in this scenario. Don't worry. It's all good. You can identify that there's safety here, which
Yeah.
is amazing. We've done a lot of talking about the dogs, and you mentioned that you're coming into a home and speaking with the other end of the lead as well. So I wanted to ask about that as well. You know, are there any particular traits that would make a human suitable to look after a guardian breed? Most effectively, I suppose.
Respect for dogs as their true being.
Mhm,
Like I said, like guardian breeds can definitely, especially when they're dogs that are not taking a treat off you, when you need them to. This can end up kind of being something where they're like, oh, this isn't my idea of what I pictured with my dog. And now I have
mhm,
this enormous fluffy animal in my home and I can't even get him to take a treat. That are guardian breeds and having the level of guardian breed where you're not going to be that stereotypical dog. Some of them will, of course. Like I said, there's nothing lying in the sand here. We're talking about
Yeah.
classic traits. But we could get guardian breeds acting in all different ways. Um, but having a respect for it, but you are bred for a very specific reason, and you are loving building and encouraging a bond and a relationship with me, and I'm going to be just as dedicated to building and encouraging a bond and relationship with you. And they will be a breed that will love to go out exploring with you. They will be a breed that will try their hand at man trailing, scent detection, hiking, they might even try their hand at maybe not agility. They don't have
Yeah.
the ability to quick turn, but they will try their hand at maybe canicross and stuff like that. So they are quite happy to be your dog, but understanding that they might be a dog for everyone. So having that quiet respect for the dog in front of us, wanting to learn more about them, have a bit of a challenge on our hands in some circumstances. Our guardian breed doesn't see the world the way we think they do. Not all the time anyway. And then we have that big suddenly rush and lunge and we can feel a little bit defeated and like, I did everything right. This is all part of guardian breed ownership. So it's understanding and knowing that they have these very specific behaviors and they're amazing. So let's understand them as much as they're observing and wanting to understand us.
Amazing. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I think that does sound like the right type of owner or guardian for these lovely, lovely breeds, which we all love to interact with, and whether they love interacting with us is then up to training and behavior, I suppose. And I think, you mentioned that these dogs in particular as puppies, we kind of need to be very careful in training them appropriately so that we can kind of minimize problematic behavior for us, at least in the future. Um, so I think training is really, really important, but I think from the behavior side, when do people really need to say, I need help here? I think what's someone's going to be listening in here saying, I wonder if I need help. When would you say that point is?
I think for anyone listening to this podcast who aren't sure, do not worry about sending me an email. Suzy at snoutabout.ie. You can include it into the description. I will be more than happy to have guardian breed owners reaching out to me with any questions, any worries, or any concerns. Early intervention is important. We do not want to, lead our guardian breed astray or do anything that could damage our relationship for the reasons with them for the reasons that we've already spoken about and mentioned previously. I think we could start with guardian breeds as early as the moment you take them home. But even if someone is thinking is a guardian breed for me, it can be a perfectly acceptable time to start talking to a professional, even just about looking for the right breeder for the right type of guardian breed, and even just to talk through, we haven't even mentioned their grooming needs if they are the big fluffy
Mm-hmm.
Great Pyr or Newfoundland. So there's no problem at all with anyone reaching out, and I think qualified certified people are more than happy just to have this chat, or they'll even have a pre-puppy service as part of their list of services. So I don't think you could go too early, but of course, if we start to see undesirable behaviours develop, like a guardian breed who may not have even been going as far as ritualized rushing and barking, but is struggling a little bit with avoidance, refusal, not looking overtly comfortable with a guest coming into the house. If you feel like you're starting to see this with your guardian breed, absolutely reach out to someone certified and have a previous history and experience of working with a guardian breed, because we don't want it to be a case of someone has now been bitten and now we are reaching out. So there's no shame in it. We all need help and support. You have a big giant dog, so feel free in reaching out at any point.
Amazing. Thank you so much. You're such a mine of information. I have one last question for you, and it's definitely a question all about bias. What is the most underrated guardian breed, do you think?
Underrated guardian breed. That's a great question. Maremmas.
What? Which ones?
Maremmas. The
Moremas.
Italian they're almost like an Italian Great Pyrenees, but they're a little bit smaller. And I have definitely made the joke before. They are a little bit smaller than like they might be 45 kilos as opposed to the full 60 to 80 kilos of other
Mm.
Guardian breeds. And I think it's because they were bred to be able to rut underneath fences to deter threats. So in Italy. So Maramas, they're pretty cool. I think they're underrated. But don't tell Irish breeders so that we don't get slightly smaller and popularized Maramas all around Ireland. We can leave them in Italy.
Exactly. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Suzy, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure as always speaking with you, and I've learned so much again from this episode. Keep doing what you're doing. I really look forward to convincing you to come back for another episode very soon. And hope you have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Killian. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. And once again, a huge thank you to Suzy for coming on and chatting with us all about the Guardian breeds. It's always such a pleasure to speak with Suzy, and I always learn so much. So if you'd like to check out a little bit more about what Suzy gets up to at the Dog Centre, you can find her social media handles and all the details in the show notes. Also, Suzy mentioned a couple of resources that you might like to check out there also in the notes. And of course, you can find loads of links to our nutrition consultation service, dognutrition.ie, in the notes, alongside, of course, the Ruby Reese links that you will be well used to seeing as well. Thank you very much for listening in, valued listener. It's been an absolute pleasure to keep this podcast up and running, and it's something that we as a whole community can learn, and I'm just so privileged to be able to have the conversations with the experts that I managed to convince to come on and chat with us on the podcast. If you know someone that would get value from this episode, please do share it on with them. It helps our podcast to grow and get out to the right people, and it is so appreciated. Thank you very much, and we'll be back very soon with another episode.